Yeah, yeah. Peter, I'm sure we've already upset lots of people, so let's keep going. How important is the mode of baptism?
Well, yeah, ask another non-controversial question, why don't you? You know, I think I've come to more of a conclusion in working through my book on baptism that the mode is important than I would have otherwise said, or to say it differently, before I wrote the book, I probably would have said, okay, obviously the mode should be immersion, but it's maybe not that important. But yet, as I studied it, I just I came to the conclusion that the mode is linked with the symbol. So I would say it's actually very important that the mode of baptism is practiced through immersion,
Mm.
because when you actually go through the immersion process, you see what Paul is explaining in Romans 6, for example, because he gives the picture there in Romans 6 that we have been immersed, if I can use that term. He uses baptized, but really we've been
Yeah,
immersed into Christ. We've been immersed into his
yeah,
death and burial. And then we are also immersed in his resurrection. Just as somebody is dipped below the water. And, by the way, it doesn't have to be backwards. Nothing says in the Bible it has to be backwards. In fact, the early church baptized people forwards, face
mm,
down. And so that's fine. But the point is, immersing oneself in water is symbolic of the death, the death of an individual, the union with Christ in his death, and then being raised out of the water is symbolic of now we are raised with Christ's new life. And then, as Paul says in Romans 6, then we therefore walk in newness of life. And one of the things that I think people often miss is that it's not really a debate. I mean, people debate about it, but it's been solved a long time. Both Paedobaptists and Cradobaptists all essentially acknowledge that what Christ or Christ's revelation of baptism in the New Testament through his apostles was intended to be understood as immersion. I mean, the
yeah,
lexical information is overwhelming. Everyone acknowledges that. But even some of the prominent Paedobaptists, like Martin Luther, John Calvin, they have some amazing quotes that I give in the book where they say, yeah, of course, baptism is meant to be done by immersion. And Luther actually says, so we should do immersion because it corresponds to the reality of what baptism actually is. But then on the
yeah.
other hand, you have John Calvin, who says, yes, it's supposed to be immersion, or that's what it was in the days of the New Testament and the early church, but it doesn't matter. And so my pushback is, well, listen, if baptism being done through immersion and being done in just such a fantastic display of what is actually being accomplished, if that's the reality, if that's what's going on right now, why should we change that? I mean, the symbol is linked with the picture of what's going on. And so yeah, how important is it? I think it's very important.